Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 46. The main focus for today will be general maintenance, with some minor expansions. There are some inadequacies that require our attention, like service troubles in the new district in Mikhailovia, boosting the distribution efficiency in Electrograd, and removing certain freight routes that are no longer necessary. We will of course continue building Alexandrograd, and by the end of this video, only one of the mines will be left for us to finish. Well, not entirely, because of the steel shortage will also impact the speed of our track laying efforts. Lukovo is the last domestic stop in our steel distribution network, so there is rarely any of it left in the train by the time it gets there. So some manual deliveries will be necessary. But the result of this will be that the tracks going to the new steel mill will still not be finished today. First things first, let's get rid of this unnecessary transfer line. We have a perfectly good distribution office in the area, with a lot of idling trucks. It would be way more efficient if we used them, instead of a dedicated route. Also, as you have seen, the roads at the end of the fields were built up enough that we could assign the last two to the DO and the farm, so for all intents and purposes, this farm is now finished. We still need to add some cosmetic details, like the windbreaker trees, that I keep forgetting. Next, during my tests, Electrograd became incredibly busy once enough workers started working in the chemical plant. So, to prepare for that eventuality, we need to add at least one more distribution office to the place. Of course, that's a couple years down the line, but they can still help out with the harvest at least. The next thing I encountered while preparing for the episode, is that childcare is once more starting to become an issue. Building 2 more kindergartens, one in each town will help with that. Of course, adding more access paths will ensure that everyone can reach it. And here's the first instance of a special steel delivery in the episode. More to come. I'll keep the train's window open on the side, so I can see when it's time to start messing with it. Next, we will need to move this heat exchanger a little. Those 2 new apartment blocks we built are just barely out of reach for it, so moving it ever so slightly closer to the town will fix that. Good thing we just came out of winter, and the weather is warming up, so temporarily removing it won't have a big impact. While rebuilding the old border outpost, I forgot to add a truck loading station for the gravel. Let's fix that now. While it will be done today, I will forget to reassign the construction office's source of gravel to it, so that's the first thing added to my to-do list. Okay, that steel delivery will help keep things going for a while. We still need to finish building the last 2 pieces of track at the new rail distribution office. So, to remove the distractions, I'll temporarily pause building the rails going to Alexandrograd. We will resume when everything else is done. There are a lot, and I mean a lot of problems happening in the new district. Barely anyone can do sports, there are problems finding culture, and there are issues with shopping too. Maybe telling the biggest building to only go to the bus stop for work was a mistake. But, before I commit to removing that assignment, I decided to give some extra service buildings a try. Let's start with a new art gallery. To help with the need for sport, I'll just add a gymnasium to the area, since we already have an indoor pool. If you have trouble squeezing in a certain building, try holding control to disable the automatic road and footpath connection. Sometimes that can help with uneven terrain. We will need to add a little bit of extra footpaths, otherwise the houses in the back won't be able to reach it. Unfortunately, there isn't enough room between it and the kindergarten. I will revisit it a bit later, but we will need that shortcut eventually. We are almost ready to start using the new Rail DO. It will only be responsible for supplying the vehicle factory with the materials it needs to function. Apart from those material imports we did for the emergency construction apparatus at the border, we can see a marked drop in our plastic imports. By the end of the episode, we will even manage to stop using foreign crops in our fabric factories. Anyways, I think it's time to add 2 more buses to the Electrograd commuter line. The more people settle in the new district, the more will find their way to the bus stop. The steel mill is almost done. As I've mentioned before, the biggest hurdle will be the amount of workdays required to finish digging out the tunnels under those mines, on top of the mountain. Alright. The tracks around the Rail DO are done. And that's that for the signals. Let's start slowly, by assigning the first couple stations for pickups and drop-offs. Four box cars and a handful of open wagons are a good starting point. Nope, we only need steel for the open storage. I'm so used to setting up construction zones, that it was an involuntary reflex. And that's all we will need for this to work. This fire got me distracted, but I will eventually remember that I still need to add the pickup stations. At this point, there is no need to delay building the Alexandergrad branch anymore. We can continue laying the tracks. For that, we will of course need more steel, so let's make another delivery to Lukovo. The biggest source of unemployment is once more the lack of childcare. Once this train is off to Lukovo, I will need to start supervising the construction on the new Mikhailovia kindergarten. It already has the materials it needs, so we only had to increase the number of local workers, so it gets done faster. The staffing issues around the new district are starting to have serious consequences, as more and more people go without the essentials to keep them happy. Removing the bus stop as the only destination from the biggest housing block will definitely help with it, by temporarily lowering the number of workers going to Electrograd. For the sake of our citizens' happiness, I am willing to do that. Alright, one more kindergarten done. Hopefully it will help more people enter the job market. Because of the staff shortages, we have a pretty big backlog of shoppers at the local store. The queue is already decreasing, so the overall capacity is enough. But I will build a second one later, just in case. There, it's already normalized. It will still take a while for the houses themselves to catch up though. And the kindergarten in Mutograd is also done. We should stop seeing people being unemployed due to the lack of childcare for now. Okay, I was distracted from finishing the new Rail DO's assignments. We can use Electrograd as the source for the different components. As of right now, all of our fabric output is going straight to the clothing factories. So, we will need to import them for the vehicle assembly plant. At least for now. Eventually, we will of course build a third fabric facility near it, but that's for later. Anyways, the second steel mill is done in Alexandergrad. Now all our efforts can go towards the two remaining mines. Things in Mikhailovia are starting to improve. The number of unhappy citizens are decreasing, as more and more of them are able to satisfy their needs. While the shopping center can cope with the current number of shoppers, it's pretty close to its limit. Once all these houses are full, I doubt it will be able to cope alone. We will absolutely need to build another one. Once we level out this little corner, it should be able to accommodate it. Thankfully, the slopes were gentle enough for the footpath connection. With the new road maintenance depot finished, we should see less slowdowns due to snow during winter. It only needs fuel, the snowplows, and it will be ready for business. We will of course keep them as colorful as possible. Alright, the heat exchanger is now closer to the town, and should be able to reach everything important. And things keep on improving in the new district. Now that I can be sure that there will be no problems, I think it's time to move some of the citizens from Mutograd over, so they can help out in Electrograd. I first open a lot of info windows, and I will transfer over 2 or 3 clicks worth of people from each building to the new district. I make sure to only use the biggest buildings I can find. If the house had less than 100 tenants, I left it alone. And that's it. Hopefully, we will see a marked increase in the number of workers going towards Electrograd. Our hunger for chemicals is never satisfied. I cannot even dare think about the amount we will need to purify the water, once the plumbing update is released to the stable branch. Anyways, I will finally add that extra footpath, so more people can reach the gymnasium. I think I may have gone a bit overboard with the bushes this time. In the end, this place will end up looking like Pripyat. Anyways, regarding the new water update, I decided to take it slow. The traffic system will of course be immediately enabled, but the water will be dealt with in a more staggered approach. I will most likely treat it as a very long-term side project, periodically enabling the game system, place a couple buildings, rebuild some factories, then disable it again, let things build, and repeat it several times, until everything is ready to go. I am way too attached to this republic at this point, and I will not leave it half done, just so I can use the water system in a new one from the get-go. So instead of starting over, I'll just spend a couple minutes in each episode working towards the point where I can enable it for good. But I have absolutely no idea how much work that will take. But toggling the water system on and off should allow us to build up the infrastructure without having to worry about doing it all at once. At least that's my thought process. So, dealing with water will be a long-term side project, that we will tinker with, while we do everything else like we did before. With the population steadily increasing, maybe we could add a couple more houses, don't you think? Yeah, those will do just fine. We only need to add the necessary footpaths. There is a lot of room in the front of these buildings, so decorating it will be a real treat. Okay, with the second distribution office ready to go in Electrograd, we need to set it up in a way that perfectly mirrors its sister office on the other side of the plastic factory. We need it to do the same exact job, so they can help each other. To help us clone the settings, we only need to have both info windows open, and we can go building by building, and copy what we see. The only error I make is that I forgot to add it to the fuel distribution offices in Adumski. Another entry in the to-do list. With the second shopping center done in the new district, we can start moving the necessary consumer goods over. Oops. I forgot to set the necessary storage limits in the vehicle factory warehouses. Good thing it didn't get stuffed full of components, and there's still some room for the other materials. I spent a minute or so trying to find out why the Rail DO didn't deliver fabrics, for example, but also other goods. I don't really know why. Once I got around to setting up the storage limits, the Rail DO sprung into action. That was a bit weird. Oh well, I'm not going to complain. It saved me a bit of headache in the end. While these two new houses were under construction, I went ahead and checked that they could reach everything important, and thankfully, they could. And since I was here, I thought we might as well place the asphalt paths going to the main entrances. Yeah. That looks good. I'm really liking the way this little neighborhood turned out. Now, looking at our unemployment overlay, we can see that the vast majority of them reside in the center of Mikhailovia. There are a couple stragglers here and there in Mutigrad, but the majority is in Mikhailovia. I suspect it is because of the heliport. That's where I told my helicopters to pick up construction workers, and since that's not a 24/7 kind of thing, I suspect a lot of people give up waiting there for a ride, so they go unemployed for the day. I will need to sort it out in the next episode. Anyways, let's finish decorating the new apartment blocks. I think those spaces surrounded by the asphalt paths are a bit too big to be paved over, so I will leave them green, with a single monument in the middle of them. With this many cows waiting, I think the meat situation is well under control at this point. Now that we have crops waiting in the Kirkomov grain silo, maybe it's time to start using it, instead of importing it for the fabric factories. The mistake I make here is that I forgot to set the silo as a loading point for the trucks. I will only realize the error a little later on in the episode. Looking at the unemployment tooltip, it seems childcare is no longer a concern. It's mostly down to the unfortunate way Mikhailovia's internal working is set up. Still, we have a nationwide 2% unemployment. If anything, it only tells me that we have more room to expand. Looking at the overall population statistics, which we haven't done for a while, things are going rather well. The number of citizens is on a steady increase, and the different needs are well taken care of. As usual, the number of uneducated citizens are in an optimal state. 2/3 are the babies, who of course cannot study, and the rest are less than the third of the school-age children. So our education system is in a good spot. Now that we had to lower the number of Electrograd commuters a bit, so the local services are staffed properly, our plastic imports are spiking again. Hopefully, not for long. To keep things rolling, let's make another steel delivery. Okay. The steel mill had a full internal storage when we arrived. That means that the 2 new houses at the train station are having an effect, and we are producing more steel than ever before. To remedy the situation, we need to add an external open storage, increasing the amount we can hold quite considerably. Unfortunately, we cannot connect to the main line after the station crossing. It will have to be placed a little further down the line. So, we need to build a certain length to make the level crossing work. But that doesn't mean we cannot trim it back a little after placing it, so we can get around the power pole a bit easier. You know, it doesn't really matter if we place this junction before the station crossing. We will stop using the steel mill's internal tracks anyway, so who cares? The coal mine already has all the materials it needs, so it's all down to manpower at this point. With constant helicopter arrivals, it will be done in a couple months. Fortunately for us, all the complaints in the new district are back down the usual booze/religion issues, which of course we don't really care about. I think these pine trees are a bit too tall, and they obstruct the view of the lake. Replacing them with bushes should help with that. See what I meant about the excessive vegetation? In some places, it's a bit much. I forgot to double check until now, but thankfully both the secret and the regular police can reach this side of the city, so we don't need to worry about crime, or about knowing who's loyal and who isn't. Ever since I sold one of the commuter trains going to Ramosov, I was a bit worried that only one wouldn't be enough to keep the factories staffed. But the different storages are still filled to the brim, so it's all good. A viewer mentioned that I can simply lower the worker numbers in the farm fields if I don't want citizens to work there. I was tempted to still wait until I can do it with the traffic management tools, but I doubt we will see it released for a week or so might as well do it this way. Anyways, here I was still blissfully unaware that the farming DO doesn't have loading enabled at the grain silo. And since I was confident that everything should work fine, I decided to send all the trucks currently running on the import lines to the depot. It won't be long before I see things not working quite as I expected. Anyways, the warehouse at the vehicle assembly plant is ready to go. We only need to bring over some steel, some workers, and it's showtime. Don't get your hopes up though. We only managed to deal with the materials today. We will have to wait a couple days before the first vehicle rolls off the assembly line. As you might have guessed, we will use that new open storage in Farograd as the source for steel. But before we can do that, we need to build it, including the tracks leading to it. Which means, more steel deliveries to Lukovo. Fortunately for us, we have the distribution train filled to the brim with the stuff. Once we let it go to Adamski for a turnaround, we will have enough to finish the construction on that storage. I'm astonished we managed to get here without running into any red lights. Now that we have enough to at least finish building the essentials, I think we can send the next delivery straight to Adamski, so the helicopters can concentrate on finishing those two mines. I think one of them still needs a bit of it. Anyways, if you'll excuse me, I'll spend a couple minutes supervising the rail construction, to make sure it gets done in a timely manner. Hey, the coal mine is almost done. Alright, coal mine done. We have one iron mine, and some rail tracks left to build, and this place is ready to go. Done. Let's finish signaling the branch, and we can switch out the steel delivery train. Oh, right. I should change stops in the line setup window, not on the vehicle itself. Thankfully, it's just a quick copy-paste, and it's all back to normal. And the penny finally drops. The fabric factories are empty, and the trucks in the DO are sitting idle. They cannot pick up crops without me telling them where. Now that's more like it. At this point, we only need to monitor the situation, to make sure these 12 fields are enough to supply these two factories. As I've said, I highly doubt it is, they tend to chew through crops at an alarming rate. But, if it comes down to it, I can still just stop selling clothes. Next to our steel and electronics exports, it's now a rather minuscule amount of money we get for them. Even if we cannot support a 24/7 clothing industry, we are more than capable of satisfying domestic demand. Or, I can just use one of the rail distribution offices to sell clothes if it goes above a certain level in the Kirkomov warehouse. Kind of like how we sell excess fuel. That would leave a certain amount for the months we have no more crops to process into fabrics, and keep selling again when we do. Anyways, now that the open storage in Ferrograd is finished, we can finally designate it as a source of steel for the vehicle factory. Okay, let's see what's going to happen next time. Now that we are on a steady upwards trend in terms of population, and our food supply is pretty much guaranteed to last between harvests, we don't need to worry about that aspect of our republic. The new steel mill is painfully close to completion, it only needs one more mine to be built, some more rail tracks to finish the connections, and it's good to go. And of course, there's the vehicle assembly plant, which at this point only needs some workers to function. I know I said before, that we should start looking into an aluminium industry, so we can start building our own helicopters. But let's hold off on that for a tiny bit longer. Instead of doing that, how about we rethink how our distribution network is set up? At least on the railroad. we are at the point where we have a lot of different products we make. Steel, electronics, different components, plastics, chemicals, the list is endless. What I'm thinking about would require us to pretty much double the number of rail distribution offices in the Republic, but if we do it, we could use one half for internal distributors, hauling everything all over the country. As for the other half, well, we would use those for exporting stuff. The domestic DOs would operate normally, while the exporting DOs would make sure that if our storages go above a certain percentage, they would sell the excess. You know, like how we deal with our fuel right now. One of the DOs is moving the stuff between Kirkomov and Adumsky, while the other one sells it if it goes above a certain level in the main storage tank. Applying that system to every single product we make would make all the current dedicated freight lines on the railroad obsolete. Of course, we cannot get rid of the commuter trains, but for freight haulage, it would be doable. The main reason why I'm floating this idea is the new steel mill in Alexandrograd, and that thing with the clothing factories I talked about earlier in the episode. Right now, we are not stockpiling any of the products outside the town warehouses. If we had a system where we could keep some for domestic use and only sell the excess, then it wouldn't matter that those 12 farm fields around Kirkomov aren't enough for a year-round export business. We would only sell what we can afford to sell. Well, that's one idea I had for episode 47. We can of course still look into that aluminium industry if we have time, but that's not exactly a pressing concern for us. We have over 20 million rubles, so we are not exactly hurting for money. And who knows, maybe the water update drops between now and the next episode, which would pretty much seal the deal. Anyways, I hope you liked the video. If you did, dropping a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. Until then, see you later.